Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Power Project webinar today. We're going to be looking at taking your project planning to the next level. This is targeted towards manufacturing industries. So you may be a steel construction company, you may be a timber frame or from a modular company. We're going to be focusing on how Power Project can be utilized to help you manage your projects a lot better. And my name is Jason Yip. I'm in sales here for Alicosoft. So just a bit of housekeeping. So you can minimize the GoToWebinar panel by clicking on the arrow icon that you can see on the screen there. Everybody is muted, but you can type any questions that you may have into the question box, and I will answer these at the end of the session. Today's webinar should last around 30 minutes, and I am recording this, and we'll send the recording following the session. So just to go through, we're going to start with the introductions, then we're going to look at the case for Power Project, then we're going to go through a live demonstration, and then finish off with answering any questions that you may have. So I just want to start off by posing some questions here just to get you thinking in the right frame of mind. So of course, what are you using at the moment to manage projects? Are you using anything at all? Are you just using spreadsheets? Is it something like Microsoft Project? Perhaps you have an MRP system, but you can't manage projects and tasks at a granular level. And of course, when you're looking at managing resources, maybe that's something you're not able to do as easily as you'd like to. So what you're doing at the moment, does that encourage or discourage the use from people? Does it aid the adoption of people wanting to input information accurately? And are you managing resources? And if so, which I'm sure you are, how are you doing that? Is that in a separate spreadsheet, maybe a separate system with a different department, a different person? Maybe it's not the resource schedule is probably not talking to your program, your actual tasks aren't being linked. So I'm sure you probably have multiple sites, factories, offices, multiple departments. There could be people working in silos. It could be from design, procurement, finance. What does that look like? And of course, time is an important topic. So whether it's delivering projects on time and within budget, how long does it take to enter into information into all of these systems and to capture that information and to get the kind of reports and all of the things that you want from it? Leading on to that, if I were to ask you, how on track are you with your projects, or how behind or ahead are you able to confidently provide me with a clear report that shows that? And how can you empower people to plan who may not be pure qualified planners? These days, more and more people are using software like Power Project to plan projects from different backgrounds. Like I said, it could be from design, people managing the procurement schedule, etc. So I want to move on now to look at the sort of gloomy picture that a lot of customers have before they come over to Power Project. And it may highlight some of the reasons why they do that. So companies may be facing tough market conditions. It means they need to look at something, they need to innovate, they need to change something within their organization. And often they'll look at the way that they manage projects and to look at, why are things not happening probably the way that they want them to more of the time. I'm sure this is something that some of you can sympathize with. So clients make changes to the specifications. Can we accurately clearly show them what the knock-on effects that those changes will make to the program, not only in terms of time, but in terms of cost? Again, bosses and clients require clear reports that they can understand. Are you able to provide that to them when they want it? A lot of companies become reactive instead of proactive, so you end up chasing our tails. You may pile a load of resources and effort onto one project or one part of a project out of panic, but then something else is going to suffer. So they don't necessarily have the foresight to be able to see ahead of time when things are going to need more attention and what to do about it. Again, I mentioned this already, so project data in multiple places in multiple formats. So everyone's inputting their own version of what's going on, but it's not necessarily linked to an overall view. And also, who's doing what and when? How many people do I have? So how many people are available to me at any one time to do a particular task? Who do I have available out of my resource pool? And also, a lot of the time, people complain about clunky software. So software that's difficult to use, it's frustrating. It puts us off. We just want to give up altogether. And that's when I want to talk about a case study that we have from a company called Severfield, who are a large steel company, and they deliver around 150,000 tons of fabricated steelwork to the UK and international market each year. They have an excess of 35 projects running at any one time, and they previously used Microsoft Project before coming over to Power Project. So what was the problem that they had? So they had an outdated system. It was clunky. It wasn't used across all business areas, and they weren't able to capture progress information efficiently from sites that then fed into the program. So the solution was that they trialed the software in their design and build departments. They took 6 licenses for main users and 10 to 20 users out on site, where now they have over 40 licenses of Power Project, which resides on their server. They're utilizing our Site Progress mobile application. So mobile application for capturing progress data, progress values with notes and photos from site, feeds into the program. And now they're planning all their new contracts, right from pre-construction through to construction in Power Project. Why did we win Severfield? A lot of their clients use Power Project, so sharing projects with them in a format that they understand is a lot easier and a lot better. Clearer and better presented plans altogether. They found it easy to pull out key dates at any stage with the powerful filtering functionality within the software. It's easy to use, and they found that it was ideal for NEC contracts. We actually have a training course, a one-day course called Managing NEC Contracts with Power Project. A cost-effective licensing model. So the IT director at Severfield found that over the long term, because we have things like free viewers and concurrent server-based licenses, it meant that over the long term, licensing for the software was more cost-effective. And then we have the training and ongoing technical support and consultants, where we're helping people on a daily basis, and that's what really sealed the deal for Severfield. So to just speak a bit more about the system in detail before we go into the demonstration. Again, it's one system for managing tasks, projects, resources, costs, reporting on progress, seeing the knock-on impact of things happening or not happening. Views are customizable based on different users, so you can make things look as simple as possible and as tailored to that individual or department as you like. A lot of drag and drop functionality, as you'll see in the demonstration. Power Project is often praised for its superior printout capability as well. It can clearly print out in no time at all, a clear-looking, good-looking plan with borders and logos and any kind of other bit of information that's required on it. Again, ongoing technical support available by phone and email between British working hours. If anyone gets stuck, they've always got someone to speak to help them out. And we've got other tools as well that are in line with your industry. So I already mentioned the mobile application for capturing progress data from sites, getting that into the program. We've also got things like Power Project BIM, where we can bring in a 3D model and link that to the Gantt chart, and then play back a sequence to show how something is going to visually look as we play it back over time. Of course, training courses as well, I mentioned, and the flexible licensing model. Of course, if you're interested later on, you can always talk to us about the various licenses that we have, etc. So I'm just going to get out of that tab right now, out of that presentation, and I'm going to launch into Power Project. So here it is. I've got Power Project open. I've got a project plan in front of me. So I'm a planner. My job is to manage multiple projects. I've got to not only create them and load them with resources and costs, but as they play out over time, I'm going to have to report on the progress of what's happening as well. So I'll show all of those things. Just to explain what we have on the screen here. So we've got three main areas. We've got the project view on the left-hand side. We've got a column-based table area in the middle, and then of course the Gantt chart based on the right with the date zone along the top there. And looking at it at a high level, I've got three projects here. So I've got a steel project in Scotland, but it could be a timber project, it could be a modular design project, modular build. But I've got a steel project in Scotland, York and Wales. Those can be rolled up at the highest levels. So each line there represents a project. And then we can just break these down into the finer summaries that I've created, and then break those down into their individual tasks at the task level. It's easy to create tasks on the Gantt chart here. We just drag a task across. We can link it together with different logic. For example, these three tasks are going to start at the same time. After that, this task is going to start. But yeah, so we have multiple projects in a multiple project view, and I can actually save a group of activities to what's called a task pool in this area here. So that, let's say I'm starting a new project now, I can just pick that up and drag and drop that onto the Gantt chart there, and that would be my new project. Of course, once it's in there, I can then change everything about that, but it's going to save me a lot of time and make me a lot more efficient by having things already set up that I can just go ahead, drag and drop on and use. So anyway, further explaining this project view area here, as well as my projects with the individual summary levels here, such as design phase, I've also got a list of resources. So I've created a list of resources, and I've got project managers here, 4 project managers that I'm going to be allocating to these design tasks. And I've also got something called code libraries. So people find these really useful. You can have as many codes as you want that mean whatever you like. So what have we got? Pre-construction. We've got information release schedule, design, which is why these tasks are in orange, because I had drag and dropped the design code to those tasks. And then when I open that up, I can see all of the tasks across all of my projects that relate to that code. So yeah, going back to the Scotland project, I've also got a number of calendars I can have pre-created and use for different areas of the project or for different resources, for example. And if I right-click and go to properties, it brings up the entire calendar for the year, and I can just go ahead and customize that to say when we're working or not working, for example. So that's the project view, but we're going to be dipping in and out of that throughout this demonstration. Moving on to the table area here, I've created this table, but you can create as many different tables as you want by right-clicking here and just adding in a column from a whole list of other columns that relate to any of these areas like resources, costs, progress, etc. So I'm a planner on this project. I've created some tasks. I've laid out my summaries. What I need to do now is basically, my problem is I'm constrained by resources. Okay, so I need to see who I've got available and when, and who can do what, and then manage them across my projects. So let's start by doing that. If I take Dan here from the project manager, resource pool, I can then drag Dan onto this task. And let's take Laura and drag her onto this task. And as you can see in the effort column, it's populated it with the hours that they're going to work and how many of them I've got. So of course there's only one Dan, there's only one Laura at any one time. And also something to mention about the things, the properties that can be set up about a resource is the software can calculate lots of different things. So often we may know a couple of things and we want the software to tell us the third calculation, for example. So you can plan in task work, for example, where we can record the amount of work and the work rate associated to a task. So for example, at the construction stage there, it may be that we need 100 units to be done at 10 units a day. So the software will tell us, well, in that case, it's going to take you 10 days to do that. And as well as that, we can resource our models. So we can model our resources so that we can show different things and we can assign different rates, whether it's a charge out rate or overtime rate associated to each resource. And just to give you an example, so as I allocated those two resources on, I've got these two lines here that sit underneath the tasks. So that color line represents Dan, that color line represents Laura. But I've modeled Dan and Laura differently. And what I'll do is I'll show you now. If I put in 0.5, so we're going to put half of Dan on that task, then it's going to make it twice as long because it's going to take him twice as long to do. So maybe I want half his time on that and half his time on somewhere else. In the case of Laura, I've locked down the duration to not change. So if I input 0.5 for Laura, then her hours are going to go down. She's doing less hours, but the task stays the same in terms of duration. So it's all about what you want to see, how you want to manage those resources. But let's keep it simple, and I'll return that to 1. And I'll go and assign these other guys to these other tasks as well. So Lee will do that task. I've got Ollie on that task. I've got the non-working shading coming down here, which is reflective of my calendar that I'm using. Let's put Ollie, let's put Dan onto here. And as I'm doing that, you've probably noticed below, this graph has been changing because this is what we call a histogram. It's a visual way of looking at our resources. So I've got that pointed at project managers. I've got it pointed at the allocation, availability, and over allocation. I've got a code here, legend, that explains what this stuff means. So that blue line, the line coming across the histogram here, is at number 4, which means that we've got 4 project managers available to us. And we can see at any point in time, we're using 3 out of 4 here, 1 out of 4 here, and so on. But then what I can do is I can also drill down. So if I drill down, I can drill down at an individual level, because sometimes it may look like we're within allocation as a whole, but it could be that certain individuals are over allocated or under allocated. In this case, I have no over or under allocation. But for example, let's take a task here from the York project. If I put Dan onto that task, suddenly I'm notified that we've got an over allocation. And I can see that by going down here, looking at Dan and seeing, well, yeah, that's right, we're over allocated. And if I right click, I can see all the tasks that are in that slice. So I can then do something about it. Something else that's really useful is, let's say I'm going to click on that task there. Let's take Dan off. I'm going to click on that task there. We've got something called resource search. So if I click on resource search, this table comes out, and I can, of course, search for resources. So I've got 4 project managers. But as I've highlighted this task, when I click on check availability, the software is going to check who's available at that time to do that task. So the way I've planned things so far, Dan, Laura, and Lee are not available. but Ollie is available. So I'm going to highlight Ollie's name and assign him to that task. So now if I click there, the task below it starts at the same time. I know that there's no availability. There is something else called level resources here, which means that if we've got, let's say we've got a large number of resources, they've all got a similar or the same capabilities. And just to ensure that there isn't over allocation across our projects in our tasks, we can hit the level resource button and it will flatten out, level out where there is any over allocation. Of course, it is just a bit of software still, so we need to be careful about what decision the software is going to make as to who goes where. So we may want to look at that. But certainly that's useful to just level things out if there are a large number of resources across projects that need managing. I've mentioned something about skill level there, about ability. If I go into the properties of Dan, again, this is where we've got things like cost rates that we can apply to Dan, but we've also got user-defined fields that I've created, in this case, 4 of them, which can give us some more information about that resource. So I've given Dan a grade B. His location is in the north. Qualification, I said that he's got Power Project and NEC qualifications. I've also given him a skill level. So further bits of information about that resource to help me allocate my resources better. So the next thing is similar to what we just did with resources. We can also manage our costs, our project costs. So as you can see in the project view, I've got these project costs that I've created listed down the side here. I've got a different table now with all costs, design fees, etc. And I'm still using a histogram, but this time it's going to be pointing at something else. It's pointing at construction costs. Well, it's pointing at a few things. So construction costs, design costs, labor, manufacturer, as you can see here. But I can turn any of those off if I wanted to. And I want to look at that over the month, just to start off. And a cost, when we look at the properties of a cost, we can decide what it is. So for example, we may decide it's an income. So we may have, we may charge out something at £100 an hour, but the cost is £50 an hour. So we can work out our margin that's £50 for that. But if I just drag and drop a design cost onto these tasks, again, a descendant bar appears underneath. And now I can actually just input into here the actual cost. And we can paste in from Excel if the table matches what it is in Excel. We can look at linking in with other bits of software that you may have, but I'm just going to type it in for now. And we can see that this is getting built up. So we can look at this cost. And when it comes to the histogram view, there's different ways of presenting it if we wanted to. So we can export that to Excel. We can move this to a whole histogram view if we wanted to, and then print it out. But anyway, now that I've done that, I've got pretty much a cost and resource loaded program. I've had it approved, and this is what we're going to stick to. So that's fantastic. We're going to stick to this program and deliver it on time and within budget. Everything's going to be great. But what I need to do now is I just need to do something called setting a baseline. So we're going to talk about how we track the progress of how actual things are going to change from our plan. So a baseline is a carbon copy snapshot of everything that we've just created. And I'll show you. So if I go to Baseline Manager, New, just going to create a baseline there. Click on Finish, and now we have these yellow descendant bars that sit underneath all of our tasks. So I can't move or link, I can't do anything with those descendant bars, but I can, of course, still move and change tasks around it. So now that's taking a carbon copy snapshot of all our costs and our resources at that point in time. So that's our target program. In this view, I've got a different table with the percent complete plan, percent complete columns within it. As I said before, you can have different views set up for different people, different individuals, different departments, and make this as simple as you like, or as complicated, as tailored as you like. So I've done away with the histogram, for example, not interested in that at this stage. But we've got this thick black line at the start of our program. So that's our progress entry line, our drop line that marks the beginning. And in this progress area at the top, I've actually pre-created 4 weeks worth of progress entry. So I've decided I'm going to capture progress about this project every week, and I need to report on it on a weekly basis. So each week number is going to have a line and a different color that jags down across the project. So I've clicked on the week 1 line, which is a blue line, and it's showing me that basically all of this stuff should have been completed by the time we get to week 2. But in the table, it's also telling me what I should have done in terms of percentages and plan, start and finish. So that was a milestone. I'm going to say, yeah, I've done 100%. That task, I've done 100%. But what if I've done 50% of this task? And for this task, for example, what happens if maybe the client has made a change and it's actually going to go on for longer? Do I do it that way, or do I start it earlier? That's up to me. Do I add more resources on? But I can certainly see what happens to my resources and also to my costs. So we've made those changes, but I can't see the knock-on effect that has next to my baseline. Everything's still matching up. So what I need to do is hit this reschedule button. So if I click on reschedule, progress entry period against week 1, then it pulls that line straight and it moves out those tasks to show the knock-on impact of things not going accordingly to plan. So we can now see we're slightly behind where we said we would be. And if I go back, I can now look at things like our baseline costs versus our planned costs. So our baseline costs are in the blue, and our planned costs, our actual costs, are in the red. Things have moved. We can see what that does to our resources. Has that caused any over allocations? In this case, I don't think it has. But if it did, I could identify it and I could rectify it. So there we go, resourcing, managing costs, and tracking and reporting on the progress. It's as easy as just going through the next week, entering the information and rescheduling. And we can re-baseline, we can hide baselines, show baselines, turn them on or off, because we may want to revise those. But now, how do I represent this? So now I'm going to have to, my boss is coming at me and he's saying, what's going on? Show it to me in a way that I can understand it. And my client, I need to also show them, okay, what's happened, this is what's happened to the program and the cost because you made that change. So there are a number of things we can do. We can configure a table, and we can, if we go to file and print, we can just print off. I could do away with those histograms if I didn't want them there. But we can now print off these really good looking printouts. So we've got a number of borders that come included with the software that you can choose to use. Different sizes, different styles. You can configure the borders and add logos in, clients' logos. I like this one because you've got different bits of information in it. I can bring back some buttons I had in the working area where I can decide to turn things. So maybe I want to turn off the baseline. Maybe I want to turn off the non-working period and the background grids and et cetera, and then send it like that. So that's a down and dirty way of doing it. There are other ways as well. So like I said, we can export to Excel. If I go to project and look under the this area here, then there are a number of tabular reports that can be created and configured by you, which I've already done some, that will go straight into Excel. So if I go to progress report for a baseline project, it's decided to send it to my documents because I've asked it to. Going to go into my documents, reports, and there it is. It's the progress report for that baseline project. If I had the if I had the skills in-house, an IT person or an admin person, someone who knows how to run a report writer, or if we've got something like business intelligence reports that exist in the business, they can run their report writer tool on this and present this in any kind of high-level dashboard, visual, really good-looking way that they want. If not, then one of our consultants can help with configuring these high-level dashboard reports. So yeah, that really covers everything off for now. We can just go back in and any questions I'll take, but I'll stop the recording there. You know, you can download a 14-day full working trial of Power Project from the website. We've got a lot of good YouTube videos that go through some basics of how to assign resources, create tasks, etc., etc. Contact us if you want to speak to us. Send us an email on the sales email. If you want a personal demonstration, we can come and visit you. We can do something over the internet. So I really appreciate your time today. I hope that was helpful. And I will stop the recording, but take questions that there may be now. Thanks.